No DQ Galaxy, we are live with the March 13th, 2024 Big Business edition of AEW. It was a heavily hyped up show, Boston, Massachusetts, one of AEW's biggest crowds in some time. I think biggest crowd of 2024 thus far, besides the Revolution pay-per-view. Largest Dynamite attendance, certainly in a while. We kicked off the show with Renee Paquette introducing us to the festivities, and then we had a car drive into the building, and then we had this music play, and sure enough, right off the bat, Mercedes Mone has arrived in AEW. She was expected to debut on this show. It was all but confirmed. We had all the teases for it without it being said outright. She came to the ring, huge reaction, lots of signs all over the place. Crowd was chanting CEO. That's her new nickname. She was the boss as Sasha Banks, but now she's the CEO. She came into the ring. She cut a promo for the fans, talked about being home in Boston. She thanked the fans for having her back over the past 2 years. She talked about her love for the wrestling business. She gave a shout out to Eddie Guerrero as somebody that inspired her. She brought up some of the women in AEW. She mentioned having unfinished business with Nightingale. If you recall, Willow defeated Mercedes when Mercedes got injured last year. It was a very good promo, I thought. As far as her entrance music goes, I wasn't feeling it the first time I heard it. It may grow on me, though. They have a CEO chant in the theme song, so the idea is to get the people to chant it, and it did work. The people were chanting it, and I liked her promo. It felt like she is happy to be in AEW, and this is a new opportunity for her. I liked it. I thought it was well done. It was very similar to CM Punk's debut at the United Center, where his appearance was not officially announced, but everybody expected it. And then he opened up the show and did this promo. So overall, I would say it's a thumbs up for me. I did like the segment with Mercedes. And so far, I think she's got the potential to be a big star for AEW. Now, Marshall Leonard sent in a $10 super chat. Thank you for that, Marshall. I appreciate it. Marshall chiming in with his thoughts. He said, I'm not impressed with Big Business. AEW Big Business was boring. No disrespect to Mercedes Mone, a.k.a. the CEO of AEW. She has a lot to do to impress me. Well, there you go. Not everybody was sold on this show, but we'll talk about the rest of the moments on Dynamite here. Curious to know everyone else's thoughts. I did like Mercedes' debut, and we'll talk more about her in a few moments. There was more of her on this show. Interesting decision to put her out there at the beginning of the show. I get it because you have The Big Bang Theory as the lead-in, and the first quarter hour tends to do the biggest number. So why not put her out there at the start? And also they announced Willow Nightingale versus Riho for the main event of the show. And that was clearly done to establish that the women's division is in the beginning of a new era. And we'll see if it continues or if this was just a one-off main event. We'll talk about Riho versus Willow in just a few moments. We had Samoa Joe backstage hyping up his world title match with Wardlow. And then we had a video package, a little vignette from Adam Cole, who was sitting down reading a book talking about Wardlow being overlooked and said Wardlow was going to become the new world champion. And then we had our world title match as the first match of the evening. Samoa Joe versus Wardlow, which I thought was going to be the main event, but they went with the women's match. Wardlow went right after Joe, beat him up on the outside of the ring. Joe was able to fight back, though, and then Wardlow came off the top with a whisper in the wind, got the upper hand for a while, and then they traded shots back and forth. Wardlow started selling his leg, but then when the referee was distracted, Wardlow gouged the eyes of Samoa Joe, went up top for a swanton, but he missed. Joe then started punching Wardlow in the corner. Wardlow turned it into a power bomb, and then he pulled the straps down. He was going to finish off Joe. However, Joe countered and applied the coquina clutch, and that was it. Wardlow lost clean to Samoa Joe, and I'm not at all surprised. I mean, I figured this was going to be the case. I mentioned it last week. Wardlow is there to put over Joe. The Wardlow push, it's over. It was what it was. Wardlow there to give Joe another win and set up the real money match as far as AEW is concerned, and that's the singles match between Samoa Joe and Swerve Strickland. Swerve came down there. He had a chain. He started taking out the security guards, and Samoa Joe fled the scene, got out of the ring. And yeah, that's the match. I mean, Wardlow had his run. He's part of the Undisputed Kingdom. He did the match with Joe. He lost. And that's that. I mean, don't really know what else you can do with Wardlow at this point. He's one of those guys that I think when his contract's up, he's gone. If I had to make a bold prediction, I just feel like they've given up on Wardlow. I'm not surprised, though, that this played out the way it did. I mean, it went down pretty much exactly as I expected. We then had Okada with the Young Bucks backstage, and they were asked about why Okada joined the Elite. The Bucks answered for Okada. They said they've had 14 years of friendship, and also they have 14 million other reasons why. So they're playing off on that number that was out there about Okada's contract, whether that's actually true or not. Okada did talk a little bit, said he's coming for Pac and Penta. And then we had our trios match, Eddie Kingston, Pac, who just returned, and Penta going up against the Elite, the Young Bucks, and Okada. Entertaining match here. AEW keeping this first hour hot. Eddie Kingston wanted a piece of Okada, but Okada just tagged out right away, typical heel stuff. And they worked over Eddie Kingston for a while. Okada did get back in there. They triple teamed Eddie. Eventually, Eddie was able to tag out. At one point, Pac and Penta were pulled off the apron, and Okada stood on the apron for Eddie's team and was taunting him. That was pretty entertaining. And then Penta got the hot tag. Penta and Pac did these dueling dives over the top. Things were breaking down. Eddie Kingston tagged back in, but then Matt Jackson gave Eddie a low blow, and Okada took advantage, hit the Rainmaker Lariat, and got the 1-2-3 victory over Eddie Kingston, which I'm not surprised about to set up a Continental Classic title match between Kingston and Okada. But what surprised me a little bit was that they did not announce this for the pay-per-view Dynasty. Instead, they're doing this match next week on Dynamite for the title. I'm definitely surprised by that. I figured they would do the title match at Dynasty, but they're doing it next week, and I'm thinking Okada wins the title. It feels like it's a little soon for that, but yeah, they're doing the title match next week, and I just don't see Okada losing this. So yeah, I think we're getting a new champion next week in Toronto. Like I said, good match here with these guys. And this was pretty much your first hour of Dynamite. So it was a strong first hour of the show for sure. And then we had William Ospreay come into the ring for an interview with Tony Schiavone. Ospreay cut a promo hyping up his Dynasty match with Bryan Danielson, said he respects Bryan, but when the bell rings, it's Bryan's life versus his life, and he doesn't plan on dying, bruv. Bruv is his new thing, or he's been doing it for a while, but it's now a thing in AEW. And, you know, just like the bro with Matt Riddle, people chant bruv when Will Ospreay's out there. Guy is really over, so should be an excellent match with Bryan. I mean, it's going to be fantastic. Ospreay's on a roll right now. AEW feels the freshest it's been in quite some time. Now that we got Okada in there, now that we got Ospreay, now that we got Mercedes Mone. I mean, they definitely needed this. They needed a bit of an overhaul. You know, they changed up the graphics and the intro for the show, new set, got some new faces in the mix. Like this was all very much needed because I did feel like Dynamite was getting stale for a while. And Ospreay, I mean, definitely has potential to be a top guy for several years here in AEW. Next up, we had Darby Allin versus Jay White. And Darby's body all taped up. I mean, you could add a little bit more tape and bandages and he could be the Mummy, for crying out loud. It was back and forth for a while. And they fought on the outside for a bit. Darby ended up being suplexed onto a chair that was backed up against the barricade. And then Darby was launched over the steps into the barricade. And Jay White started ripping off the bandages. But then Darby made his comeback. And Jay White was laid out on the apron. Darby went up top, went for the coffin drop. But of course he missed, smashed his back on the apron. Yet another week of Darby Allin nearly killing himself. Somebody, I'm not sure if this has been done or not, but somebody should, if they haven't already, make a video compilation of all the crazy Darby Allin stunts and throw the Jackass music on there. Hi, I'm Darby Allin. Welcome to Jackass. And then you have the music with all the crazy bumps he's been taking over the past several years. So this was the beginning of the end for him. He could have been counted out, but he's a brave man. He's going to be climbing Mount Everest soon. He doesn't back down. He barely beat the 10 count, and Jay White just finished him off with the Blade Runner. So good match here with these guys. I mean, not a shock with Darby leaving. I figured he was going to put over Jay White before he goes to Mount Everest. And then after the match, you had the Gun Club come out there, and Darby went for the handshake, but then Jay White gave him the gun shoot, and the Guns attacked Darby. Heel turn already. This Jay White and Guns face turn lasted like, what, a month? They're back to being heels. The Acclaimed ran down there. Billy Gunn yelled at Jay White, and then Jay White hit Billy with a steel chair. I mean, at least they didn't have the kids turn against their dad again, but they were involved with Jay White. They attacked Caster and Bowens, and I thought Caster was teasing a heel turn. Like, he was going on Twitter and saying all these crazy things, and he's been messing up his rap promo. So I'm not really sure what's going on with him, but yeah, the Gun Club, Bullet Club Gold, whatever the hell we're calling them, they're back to being heels. The Bang Bang Scissor Gang is no more. It had its run for like a month, and now it's done for. And they took Darby's ankle. They wrapped the chair into his ankle, and then Darby hit it with a baseball bat. So they have effectively written off Darby Allin now, so he can go do his Everest climb. So there you go. No more Darby Allin, and hopefully he'll be back, because we all know the climbing Mount Everest is very risky. So wishing him the best, and hopefully he returns. We had Chris Jericho and Hook going up against Gates of Agony. And before we get to that, Marshall Leonard sent in a $2 super chat. Says, Wardlow to WWE would save his career, in my opinion. I think that's where he's got to go at some point. Give him a shot in NXT. Like, he's got the size. The dude can talk. He proved it a couple weeks ago. He can talk. He's athletic. He's tall. He's got the body. He's got the attributes. I don't know why AEW has dropped the ball on him, but yeah, I would think that WWE will pick him up and give him a shot. I mean, that's really his best option at this point. I think the ship has sailed as far as him getting the big run in AEW. It's come and gone. Building Nexus sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. It says, Omega versus the New Elite when, if he returns. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got that match for Omega when he comes back, him versus Okada. You can do Omega versus Ospreay. Like, Omega, let him take his time off, heal up, rest up. And yeah, when he comes back, he's definitely got some fresh matches. I mean, not fresh because he's already faced these guys, but it'll be fresh being in an AEW ring when he comes back and faces these guys. And, you can do blood and guts at some point with everybody. Omega's team versus the New Elite. When Hangman Adam Page returns, you can get him in the mix as well. Omega will definitely have some stuff to do when he returns to action. But no rush. Let him rest up. We had Jericho and Hook versus the Gates of Agony, which I think was the low point of the show. I mean, it was an enhancement match. Gates of Agony, they're prelim guys. They're what, Ring of Honor guys? I'm not even sure what they do. They team with Brian Cage and lose on Dynamite. But I did not care about this match. It went way too long. I mean, Jericho and Hook should just beat these guys in 2 minutes and let's move on. One of those matches that went way longer than it needed to. Of course, Jericho and Hook get the win. They did the Lion Tamer and Red Rum combo, which reminded me of when Jericho and Chris Benoit would do their dueling submissions. It's just something for Jericho to do right now with Sammy Guevara out now, reportedly suspended. Jericho's doing this storyline with Hook. And then backstage, Jericho said that he respects Hook, but he wants to know more about Hook, and he feels like the only way to do that is to be in the ring against him instead of teaming with him. So Jericho issued a challenge to Hook for a match next week in Toronto, and Hook accepted. We got a pretty stacked show for next week. Remember, we got Adam Copeland versus Christian Cage in that I Quit match on next week's Dynamite. And then backstage, Kyle O'Reilly was interviewed. He questioned if he can still hang, and he said he's had his eye on somebody, Brian Keith, and he wants to face him this Saturday on Collision. I guess he saw that guy, and he's like, that's the guy I can beat in my first match back. He's low enough on the totem pole, I can take him. I guess that's his attitude. I don't know. But we had Roderick Strong with the Kingdom show up, and Strong respects Kyle doing things on his own, gave him a fist bump, and took his leave. So we'll see where this goes, if things change with these guys. And then backstage, Mercedes Moné shook hands with Riho, And that set up our main event, Riho versus Willow and Nightingale, getting the main event spot, obviously because of Mercedes Mone debuting on this show. I think this was the first Dynamite main event for the women since like December of 2022. I saw that on Twitter. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but it's been a while. It has been a while since a women's match has closed the show. It'll be interesting to see what the quarter hours for this are. I suspect this will be maybe the lowest quarter, just because normally this match would be at the 9:15, 9:30 spot. Like, it's not even a match that would normally be in a high profile position. You know, it's just two women that have been pushed. Riho was pushed in the beginning, women's champion, and Willow has been building up momentum. I do like Willow. I think she has an interesting character, and she's a powerhouse. I like it. I like her act. I am a fan of her. I like her music. It was a good match here with these two. Riho got in a lot of offense, which can tell you that she's going to be losing in the end. A lot of near falls. Almost had Willow beat on several occasions. Willow did knock her out of the ring with the pounce, but then Riho regained the upper hand and did the double foot stomp off the top rope to the floor onto Willow. Crowd was chanting, "This is awesome." And then Riho gave Willow a dragon suplex on the apron and then got her back in the ring, came off the top with the double foot stomp. Willow kicked out, and then Willow made her come back, and Willow pulled the straps down, and Willow got the win with the power bomb. I thought it was the right finish. I mean, Mercedes said she has unfinished business with Willow, so why should Willow be losing at this point? You know, if they're setting up Willow versus Mercedes. Right finish here. Willow hugged Riho after the match, and then the lights went out. Julia Hart and Sky Blue attacked Willow. Crowd was chanting CEO. That led to Mercedes running down to make the save, and she took out Julia and Sky Blue, standing tall. This can set up a potential tag match. I would save Mercedes' first match for the pay-per-view. I would not give it away on Dynamite. Have it be on the pay-per-view, especially if you're giving away Okada versus Eddie Kingston on Dynamite and Edge versus Christian, or Adam Copeland versus Christian, excuse me. I would definitely save her first match for the pay-per-view. So yeah, Mercedes opened and closed the show. And I thought it was the right call for this week. I hope they can keep the momentum going. That's the key. First week, I would say, was definitely a success. And overall, it was a great Dynamite. It was a very entertaining show overall. A few low points, but all in all, I really liked it. I give the show an A-. Happy for Mercedes that she has this opportunity. And time will tell if she can get the division rolling and make it as credible as the men's division and really have a new women's revolution. You know, she did bring that up during her promo, brought up the evolution of the women's wrestling movement and all that several years ago. Will this be a new evolution of women's wrestling, especially for AEW, because the women's division in AEW has kind of been an afterthought past few years. Building Nexus sent in a $2 super chat. Interesting question here. Is Mone the most important signing in AEW history? I wouldn't say that, but I do think she's important as far as the women's division goes. I would say she's more important than most of the signings. Like, I think CM Punk was still one of the biggest signings. Bryan Danielson was a major signing. Jon Moxley from the get-go. Chris Jericho. But Mercedes is up there for sure. I would say she's easily the biggest women's signing, and right up there, maybe number 5 or number 6. I mean, history will tell us if the women's division gets bigger out of this and it brings more eyeballs to AEW. She'll be up there among the greatest signings. But like I said before, a year from now, if she's in Soraya's spot where she's barely on TV and she's a background character, then it's gonna lessen the impact of her debut. So we'll see. The jury is out. History will tell us how important this signing was overall to the company. Thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoyed the recap. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up on YouTube. NoDQ.com/YouTube will take you straight to the YouTube page, and you can follow NoDQ on the social media outlets, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, so on and so forth. Shout out to James, who was at the venue, and so was a lot of people that I know were there. Walter Cruz was there. He sent me some pictures. And Mikey T, the movie star, Report Card Radio, he was there too at the event, and a couple others. So sounds like everybody that went had a great time. And it was a great show overall. Love you all. Have a great rest of your week. And I'll see you Friday night after SmackDown. Remember, say yes to NoDQ.com. Buy a shirt at NoDQ.com/merch. And I will see you all next time.